Hello, can you guys hear me?
We can. Can you hear me?
Oh, fantastic. I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties. My computer's running an update spontaneously, so I'm trying to use my phone.
But you're here. We can hear you.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so we're live streaming. So
we go wait for Carolyn, I think, or she's gonna come in.
she said she's going to zoom in. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think I'll get the meeting going. I have to call to order the Monday, November 14th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting with the first order. We are mostly in person. There's a couple board members remote voting in. First order of business being any public participation. If you have any public participation.
I don't have any email.
Okay. No, any public? Okay, great. So we're gonna go right to the audit presentation. If you look at the attachment, is this, right?
Right.
Okay. Do you want to introduce that or you want to?
I think we have our auditor from Carter and Company, Heather Lewis, here to present the draft financials, and I guess I'll just turn it over to you. I don't know exactly what your procedure is, so.
Sure, thank you. So I'm going to go through that packet of
Okay.
information, just highlight some information that's in here,
Great.
answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks.
So if you turn to page 1, that's our independent auditor's report. If you were to look at this compared to last year, layout format's a little bit different. We had some new standards we had to implement. But now right at the top is our opinion. So in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects and according to generally accepted accounting principles. So that's that clean opinion, unmodified opinion, highest level of assurance that we can provide. It lets you know that we have certain standards that we have to follow, generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. Let you know that management's responsible for making sure that they have good internal controls in place and that the financial statements are materially correct. And if we continue on to page 2, it lets you know what our responsibility is as your auditors, and that's to obtain reasonable assurance, properly plan the audit, exercise professional judgment, be skeptical, things like that. Required supplemental information on the bottom of page 2 just lets you know there's certain information included in here that's required by standards. We don't give an opinion on it, but it is included in here, and our non-opinion is just standard language. And then on page 3, it lets you know that there's an audit report that we'll go through that's in accordance with government auditing standards. Page 4 starts your management discussion and analysis. A lot of good information in here. It kind of gives you some plain language information about the library itself, what happened during the year, and some things to expect for the future. We're going to go past that and turn to page 10. So page 10 and 11, these are considered your full accrual financial statements. It includes all the governmental activities as well as your long-term assets and long-term liabilities. A couple of new items to point out. In the current assets line, you have a new line of investments, about $1 million in there. That was your treasury bill. So that is considered investments and not cash. Your largest asset is your capital assets, so building, property, equipment, that kind of thing. You have a new line, net pension asset, $647,000. That was a liability last year. This is your participation in the employee's retirement system. So this is your proportionate share of the employee's retirement system. So not a number that you don't actually have an asset set aside for that amount. It's really just the actuaries, the state's actuarial calculation of your participation in that plan. Last year it was a liability. This year the state considers themselves fully or overfunded. So that's reported as an asset this year.
So can I talk about that? I
Sure.
don't understand why it's what we have to pay to the retirement system, or is it the fact that our employees are in the retirement system?
The fact that your employees participate in the retirement system and you contribute a portion, they contribute a portion, results in you having to record the activity related to the state pension plan. So that
So it comes up as an asset then?
it comes up as an asset this year. So based on whatever actuarial calculations they have, whatever assumptions that they use,
Yeah,
their anticipated return on investment based on past experience, and anticipated future experience, that has all calculated as an asset this year. This is the first year since you've had to record this that it's been
Yeah.
recorded as an asset.
yeah, okay, that's what's. different.
Yeah,
So
it was-
why would
and
we
you'll-
have that?
Yeah, you'll see the schedule in the back. It's been a liability, and then this is the first year so far that it's switched to an asset.
Because the retirement system is doing so well that.
So fantastic that
Okay, that's
based
interesting.
on their assumptions. And the other thing to remember is this is valued as of March 31st, 2022,
Okay,
based on data of as of April 1st, 2021. So there's a
Oh,
lot
okay.
of
Yeah.
moving parts, and then you're reporting it at June 30, even though it's not really a 6/30 number.
Yeah.
So a lot,
Okay.
yeah, a lot of moving parts. The footnotes have more information, but yeah, it's based on the state's plan.
okay,
And the reason for that is because of the state's fiscal year, right? It's not,
Yes.
we don't have the same fiscal year as the
Right.
state.
Okay, so then if we continue on this page, your long-term liabilities, you'll see you have the other post-employment benefits of 2.1 million. That is your retiree health insurance. So that's specific to your library based on your specific agreements. So that is the actuarial's calculation of that liability. Should the library close at the end of 6/30, that's the potential liability out there based on your current employees and current retirees. So that number.
Are you still on page 10 or have you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep, the other post-employment benefits is down in that long-term liability section. And then the other numbers I wasn't gonna go through on
I
here.
see what you're looking.
Okay. Next page, page 11, I'm not gonna go through any of this information. This is just the long-term, full accrual revenues and expenses of the library. So if you turn to page 12, so page 12 is the balance sheet for the library. This is on more of a short-term focus, more in compliance with how your budget is done, that annual look, annual basis. Down in the assets, you have, again, that investment line is new with the treasury bills. That's really the biggest change on this page of the financial statements. If you were to look this year compared to last year, so, and you only have reported your general fund. Last year you had a capital projects fund because you had a capital project that you were in the middle of. That closed up, so that capital project fund is no longer reported, and everything is reported as general fund. So should you have a new project going forward, that would be in a reported as a separate column on these financial statements. Okay, then I was going to skip to page 22. We're going to go to the footnotes. And the only thing I wanted to point out here is you have a new footnote number 3, cash and investments. So this will give you information on that new investment that you have with the treasury bills. It gives information on your policies, what you're allowed to invest in and what you're actually investing in, which the investment is obviously an allowable investment under the library. Okay, now we're going to go to page 35. I didn't get the PDF numbers, so we're trying to keep up.
Doing my best, cruising along.
Page 35 is footnote number 11. So you had to implement a new accounting standard this year. It was GASB 87 related to leases. And you also early implemented GASB 96, which is subscription-based information technology arrangements. Those two standards had no impact on the library. Nothing fell under the new guidance of what a lease is considered or the requirements of subscription-based information technology arrangements. So nothing changed in your financial statements, but I wanted to point it out because you did implement this new standard. We went through the process to evaluate if you had anything that qualified under that new standard, but nothing was required to be adjusted or reflected differently in your financial statements. But it's important for you to know that you did implement the standards as you were required to. Okay, next page. Page 36, so this is your budget to actual schedule for your general fund. You'll notice that if you look at the column all the way over to the right, the variance, you can see you're under budget on the expenditures by about 421,000. Part of that is because your capital project finished up. Part of that is the cost of books versus audiobooks, some vacancies, things like that. So that's your budget to actual schedule. The next page is your schedule for the other post-employment benefit liability. So again, this is the retiree health insurance that you have. The only thing I wanted to point out in your 2022 column, you'll notice that your total change in your liability was a decrease of about 600,000. So I wanted to make sure you understood what caused that decrease. Really, that's not a function of a change in your plan or anything like that. It's a change in an assumption. So you previously had assumed you'd have a discount rate, which is should you have been able to invest these dollars, what you would have returned on your investment. You're not allowed to invest them, but if you had been, your discount rate previously was 1.92%. That was increased to 3.6%. So as the discount rate increases, your liability decreases. They have an inverse relationship. And the discount rate you use is based on the specific requirements. You have to use a bond buyer discount rate. So you really don't have a lot of control over that number. So nothing changed in your plan. It was really just all assumptions that changed how that liability was reported. And then on the next page, this kind of answers your question earlier about the employee retirement system. We can see it was an asset this year of $647,000, but the history is that that's been a liability. And 2 years ago, the liability was $2 million. So you don't have any control of the number. You budget for it on an annual basis. You budget what you're required to pay. So this is just for your information, but just to highlight that it previously has been a liability. And then we're not going to go through the next page. Then the last report up here is your report in accordance with government auditing standards. So as part of government auditing standards, we have to consider your internal controls over financial reporting. We don't give an opinion on them, but we do consider them as part of the process. And this lets you know that given these limitations, we did not identify any deficiencies that are considered to be material weaknesses. Could be material weaknesses out there that we didn't come across, but there was no internal control findings to report here. And then on the top of the next page, the report on compliance and other matters, which is page 41. This lets you know we also have to consider your compliance with any material laws or regulations. There was nothing, no non-compliance to report. So this is again very clean opinion. It's standard language that's in here, and that's it. And then you also have the letter.
No, I don't.
Okay, that's fine.
It's at the beginning.
It's at the beginning?
Yeah.
All right,
I went out of.
get ready for whiplash, everybody.
No,
No.
I can just.
it's the
paraphrase, but-
260 letters.
Yes, it's the 260 letter. So basically, it just reiterates what our responsibility is. Let you know there's estimates in your financial statement. So those actuaries have big estimates, big estimated numbers, subject to change. We review them. We believe that they're reasonable. It lets you know that we didn't have any difficulties in our audit. Lets you know we did not have any uncorrected or corrected misstatements. So we didn't propose any adjustments. So the numbers we got were good numbers, nothing to change as part of the audit process. So it's all very standard language that's in the letter as well. And there's no management letter, so there's no other, internal control findings that we feel need to be brought to your attention. Any questions?
Any questions? Are we questions?
Would it be possible to add a note to the opening sentence about the difference in how we treat the pension fund?
In what
the letter?
sentence?
Or- In the letter?
Yeah, the first paragraph that we looked at had the change in asset going from something like 50,000 to 1.1 million. And that's just such a big difference. It feels like it needs an explanation of some
You could put something in your MD&A.
kind.
Was if you wanted the language in there, that would be where you put it.
I still understand how that happens. Like, I understand what you said to me, but so the state is saying, while the last couple of years, we were underfunded, so it's a liability. Now, this year, all of a sudden, we are overfunded, therefore it's an asset.
Yes.
But you don't control the asset library. You have nothing to do with it. Something you can say and do anything about it, but you have to show on your books it says an asset.
Yes.
That's intellectually inconsistent to me, but that's fine. Okay. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, that they would have been a flip it to, oh, it's an asset. So,
Now, it's important to know that the plan is audited by their auditors, so they hire KPMG to audit their pension plan.
Right.
And they also audit the information that's distributed to everyone who participates. So the
Okay.
calculation of your share is audited by the state auditors as well.
Oh, okay.
And we are required to review that information. We also review, they have a separate actuary report that includes all that. I mean, granted, we couldn't tell them they were wrong.
Right.
We could maybe say this seems odd, but
Yeah.
we're allowed to rely on what the state's auditors have provided to you, as well as
Right.
anyone else who participates. So maybe there's some comfort that they do have their auditors looking at that information.
Yeah, no, definitely. So if the library closed on July 1, then we get money back from the state?
No.
That's my question is like, what if anything has it, our budget, I mean, because I think on
Can't
budget,
guess.
like asset,
It does not affect the budget at all.
Right, it
Yeah.
seems
No
like
one
it's
pays
just.
on the budget.
yeah, like asset sounds like money, like, we're getting something, yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if they have a good enough return, your contribution rate
Should be cut,
would decrease
Ideally.
ideally.
right? Right, and it did not decrease.
I think it did decrease
Little bit.
slightly
A
So-
little bit, yeah.
from last year.
More of an, less of an increase
the-
or?
No, it decreased.
It decreased slightly, not a lot.
Okay,
Right,
Yeah.
but the who's currently employed in that
right,
for our bill matters a lot more.
Yeah, it
Then-
changes a lot.
It changes a lot every year because you get new people, and as
Right.
people retire who are lower tier,
right,
then you replace with higher tier people, then that
Right.
leads to a lower cost for us for the pension.
right.
That's
Your
more
mi- Your
impactful
mix of staff as you move forward,
census.
changes all
You got it. And remember, that's why they put the tiers in. That's why, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
Right.
So we're, quickly, there's a lot of our staff are tier 6.
Yeah.
So they cost less.
along.
So that number is moving all the time, it sounds like.
And there's a lot that goes into it, and it's not under our control.
Yeah, no, I understand, okay.
So I had a question, I'm not sure what page we need to go to, but you talked about the capital project that wound down, so I was trying to look between this and my notes, what page number you were talking when that came up, what page? you
So
were referring
that
to when you
was,
said that?
if you were, we don't, there is no capital project, so you're not gonna see it.
Right,
in
right, but
here,
when you
but
commented on it, I
page-
can't remember what page.
That was on page 12.
Page
Okay.
12, right.
And so last year, you would have seen a separate, there would have been a general column and then capital projects.
Okay.
And the reason we had that last year, we had a small balance of about, I think it was 28,000, something like that. A receivable from, for the grant. So we had to keep it open
Okay, right,
and show it in the capital projects fund. We didn't receive those funds until after the end of last fiscal year.
Yeah, it was like August. It was at the beginning of the new
Yeah.
fiscal year, so we had, it was like August. So we had to show up for the whole year, even though 1 month into the fiscal year it was essentially closed.
And that was left over from the last capital project that we did, which was the HVAC system.
I was wondering, okay.
Yes,
yeah,
it was the
yeah.
HVAC system,
Okay.
right. So if we begin a new capital project, we will have, whenever that happens, whenever we start incurring funds, in fact, if we start paying the architect, next year, we'll have a column called Capital Projects Fund, and it'll show the activity of the Capital Projects Fund, which will just be the expenditures of the architect.
Right.
Unless we do other things.
And would that include any shift from the fund balance into that account? Okay, great, that's my question.
okay, great. Any other questions? Okay. Right.
Thank you.
Welcome to stay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everything makes sense. Get on your phone on the way home, you can get out of the lobby. Thank you.
Thank
Now-
you very much out there.
Charmaine, if you wanted to move to the other side, I just had her open.
That's
so-
okay.
Okay.
Okay, as long as people speak loudly, we can definitely hear the people. I know, I think Caroline has joined us too, but I can definitely hear from you, but you'll see me just turning my head and I'm catching everyone's.
Okay,
So we need to vote.
okay, so I need a motion to accept the audit, the financial report audit presentation.
I move that we accept the financial audit presentation.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, motion carries. Harmeet, do I assume that's a yes for you or?
Yes, aye.
Okay. No problem. Okay. Great, motion passed. So we'll go right into the previous meeting minutes on page 46 and 50 in the packet.
Just go through slowly if you'd like me to.
Sure.
So I'll make a motion to accept the previous meeting minutes.
Any second?
I second it.
All those in favor, signify by raise your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Financial report, page 51 to 59.
You might want to show the revenue
Yeah.
and expenses. Yeah,
Could you increase the size a little bit, Jeff, with the plus button, like at least once? Thank you. You should be able to shift it. Thank you.
so you'll see on the revenue side, we have received 3.5 million in tax revenues from the school district as of the end of October. We've actually received another 658,000 in November to date, so that brings the total receipts to about 96% of the budget. So we've got most of our tax dollars in. Expenses are very consistent with last year at this time and running about 6% under budget. Slide down to expenses. Everything's very consistent with the prior year at this time. I don't know if anybody has any questions about anything in the financial reports or the checks that we dispersed, that are presented for disbursement.
Okay, see where it says capital expenditures? Does this say 100,000 under expenses?
Yes, we have a budget of $100,000.
Oh, that's the budget for it.
Yes,
Okay,
the
got it.
budget.
Thank you.
The first column is the budget line, the second
Got it.
column is the actual expenditures.
Thank you.
So that 4,900 that we spent, that we charged against capital expenditures was for the
3D
printer, what's it called?
The
3D
3D
printer.
printer.
But can we get that back from the cable charge?
Not from the cable charge, but from the storage, from the storage
Storage,
fund,
okay.
right, that's kind of an
Yeah.
internal, that's an internal account.
That's a term, okay.
Yeah, and you'll see on the front, on that first page, it
Is that-
shows that we currently have 15,126 in the storage fund
Okay.
because we used that to purchase the
Okay, cool.
3D printer.
Are we still getting that?
Right,
cable?
when- Yeah, that's
Okay,
when
money.
we actually purchased a number of our
Laptops.
laptops because they have video editing software on them.
Okay.
The camera that we're on right now was purchased with that, as is the one in the community room,
Okay.
because they can enable exactly this, and this streams out over YouTube, but also doesn't stream, also is played on the public access TV channel. So that's a capital expense that we
Okay.
applied for the town for reimbursement for that.
And we purchased it last fiscal year,
Okay,
so that's why you don't see it in the expenses
Okay.
for this year.
all right. The print materials is a little bit down. Is that like still the supply chain thing, or is that just noise? I mean, it's a teeny bit down.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I mean, there's still, things are not completely normal, but we're approaching whatever our new normal is,
Okay,
so.
okay.
Can I ask a question about when the money, the income that we get from the taxes, what determines when we get that money? You're saying we got 96% or whatever,
Right.
like how's that?
Well, it's the school district and whatever their process is. I mean, generally, they remit the funds to us as they receive them.
Okay,
And the big bulk of, tax payments come in at the end of September.
okay,
And they do, their process, whatever calculations they do to determine, which share is ours. So, generally, we get the tax revenues in October and November. And by the end of November, it's usually close to almost 100%.
What the school board does is that there'll be a list of folks who have paid their taxes. And so the board will eventually authorize, the school board will authorize the treasurer to go to collection for them. And so that's why I think things keep trickling in. is that-
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's supposed to be, okay.
And at the end, there's the state makes the county whole, the county makes the school district whole, and then we are made whole for those taxes. So we receive at the end of the state fiscal year, we receive one last final payment that kind of closes up and brings our levy to as close to 100% as it's going to get.
Okay.
Okay, any questions or further comments on the fiscal report? Or treasurer's update?
I do have, I wanted to talk a little bit about investments.
Oh, good, yep,
Um,
sounds good.
So the treasury bill that we invested in last May came due in November. And because rates were kind of fluctuating, we waited a little bit to see where they would land, but we ended up, the treasury bill that came due, we earned almost $6,800 in interest. We ended up rolling it over into a new treasury bill. And we rolled over the earnings, plus there was a little extra money in that account. So we ended up rolling over about, I think it was like $1,006,000 into a new T-bill with a par value of $1,029,000. That means when that bill comes due, we'll collect $1,029,000, which means that we'll earn about $22,000 on that T-bill because the interest rate is 4.257, almost 4.26%. So for 6 months, investing that $1 million, $1,006,000, it's going to grow to $1,029,000. And then in May, again, we'll have to make a decision about what we want to do. In addition to that, we looked at our finances and our cash position and our fund balance, and because rates are higher than they've been, and I don't know how long, right? CD rates are up to 4.5%. We decided to invest another $1 million in a CD with TD Bank. So we just took money out of our money market account, which is where we usually keep our savings. We took $1 million out of that account, put it into a CD, earning 4.5%. Because our money market account only makes about, I think it's up to 1.75%. And in addition, we took another $500,000 and invested it in a 3-month CD, earning 4.14%. 3 months because, we don't want to cut ourselves too short. We have to pay bills every month, right? And if the 3-month CD, that 500,000 should come due in like February or so. And so it'll be available to us if we need it to pay out the rest of the expenses for the rest of the year. Or we'll see where we are at that point. We might decide we could reinvest it again for another 3 months. I don't know. We'll have to see. But this is all about trying to manage the cash that we have on hand optimally. We should try to earn as much interest as we can, especially in this environment where we have some options. Taking advantage of these opportunities, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I think we might end up with close to $70,000 in interest income this year. Because, yeah, I know.
So I have a general question about investing, because I know we have an investing policy, because I looked at it, the policy, I can't remember what it is. To what extent does the board have input or oversight of what goes with it? So I know I know we have a policy, but I don't remember what it says.
According to the policy, the treasurer has oversight responsibility of investments. And we meet with the finance committee to review any changes or anything, any opportunities that come up. So we did have a finance committee meeting.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I
That's what I
should
wanted to say.
have said that in the beginning. I didn't just say, oh, let's do that. I think this is a great idea.
So the board feedback or participation comes to the finance. committee.
Yes.
That's, I just want to make sure that the board somehow look at this.
Yes,
All right,
yes,
thank you.
yes. Sorry, I should have said that in the beginning. Yeah. So we had a discussion with the finance committee, and then we put things on hold for just a little bit of a few days because we weren't sure where interest rates were going to land. And then we had another email discussion about
Okay.
doing this.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. It's good stuff. Okay, any questions on the investments or the financial report in general, or any warrant checks or warrants? A couple named people, but.
Oh,
That was the credit card.
Right, so,
Okay.
so our,
We talked about that. Good.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, I'll take a motion on that.
So moved.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Hi.
Carries. Thanks a lot. Personnel report.
you will see, as far as actions are concerned, the confidential secretary has been hired. She will start next Monday, so I'm excited to get that position up and moving. In addition, I have one requested action, and this is for librarian one part-time. You'll see there is an open librarian full-time. And during our last canvas, we're looking for a children's focused librarian. And the returns on the canvases that we got were not from people who had a children's focus. And we need, our emphasis right now for our new positions is that we need some people who are children's librarians. We need a children's focused librarian. So while they meet the qualifications, they certainly have their master's degree, but there's no experience towards children. So in the hopes to be able to reach some folks that may have more children's experience, I'm looking to change the position into this part-time librarian one at 20 hours a week. And the hopes that person who is looking for part-time may be lower down on the list, and we can get a wider candidate pool and find somebody.
And to clarify, you only have 3 options, was that?
That's the minimum that we can have. In the last canvas, we had 3 options. You know, all good people and certainly qualified on the list, but no children's experience.
But just the point that the pool is very limited and it's
Yeah.
difficult.
That's as small as our pool can be of willing responders. So when we send out our canvas letter, just because you're on the list doesn't mean we get a chance to hire you. We can't make people work for us. So the people who responded canvassly positively, who were at that top score, those 3 folks were had lots of good experience, but not children's experience. So that's
I just have a quick question. The confidential secretary's first name is
Jennifer.
Jennifer. Okay. So since that person, I think part of the responsibility is working with the board, board members should expect emails from Jennifer Crawford.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. Yep. I expect that you'll be able to meet her next month at the.
Any questions for Jeff on the personnel report or personnel reports? All right, I'll take a motion to accept the personnel actions.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, great. All in favor, signify by raising your hand.
Hi.
Please, moving into the UHLS report. Oh, directors, I'm sorry.
Do you want to go first?
Let's skip right
No,
on.
it's
to Director report, 61 to 70.
You all wishful thinking that you're going to get through out here faster. Sorry.
The bridge director.
A bridge as I can. All right, there we go. So leaves, sorry, so many leaves. Leaves. That's what I was gonna say. It's a lot of leaves. We do have we'll talk about the contract snowplow later. We did pass our annual school district inspection. So because the property and library are still owned by the school district, their insurance company does do a fire inspection of the building every year. And any deficiencies would be reported to me, which then would be reported to you. No material findings. They usually find a thing or two easily fixed. And just sort of unplug that from there and plug it in over here. So those sort of things. But it's good. It's a good, every year it's an annual visit from a fire inspector. And we always like to be in compliance with all of our fire regulations. Lots of great programs this past month, obviously highlighted by the super high numbers at our outreach events. The trunk or treats events continue to become more popular. We did our program in concert with the town of Bethlehem at LF Park. We also participated at 2 of the trunk or treats for the local schools. So lots of the same people at those events, which is great. So, and then my favorite day to be here is, and thanks Michelle for calling on that one. My favorite day to be here is the trick or treating in the library, because it's the preschool kids. They do not know a lot of them about trick or treating yet, and for many, it's their first experience doing that. So it was nice to have them. Lots of great programs. It just feels nice to be getting our programs, increasing our programs. Again, I keep mentioning my focus for this winter, fall, and spring will be to continue to increase the number of early literacy programs for children here at the library. That's, we have lots of other awesome programs, but that's where my focus is right now. I think that's where there's the biggest gains. So lots of cute pictures from Make Your Own Monster, which make me very happy. The outreach numbers you'll see are very high because of the trunk or treats. And there's the unicorn van that was out there. Everybody, unicorns very popular this year. Not only lots of students that were unicorns, lots of kids dressed as unicorns, but the van went out as a unicorn. Some of us dressed as sea turtles. Just in the report, talk a little bit. Sometimes I think Phil is including for me some of these checkouts. I think it's good just to get a general sense of what we check out. The vast majority, the biggest chunk, of course, is adult books, and then children's books, AV. 7 years ago or 10 years ago, that AV would have been a full, healthy third of our checkouts. And just AV continues to shrink as a category, as streaming, audio, streaming.
So these are movies and CDs.
Yep, movies and movies, CDs, and audiobooks. So even so, audiobooks are probably our one gaining section of that, and the rest of that is represented by some steep declines in movies and steep declines in music. So.
Yeah.
Here's your question, the young adult, is that kind of typical? I mean, it looks like we have a good children's usage, a good adult usage. The young adult is just kind of a.
It's a relatively small collection. I mean, you think, and it's a relatively small number of years, actually. The children's section goes all the way from preschool, from birth, all the way up to 5th grade or 6th grade. And then YA is really middle school. So it's like 3 years. And by the time the kids are in high school, some of them are reading YA, but many are moving on to reading books straight out of the adult collection. So it is a slice. And the thing about children's books, parents check out children's books, right? So teenagers check out what they check out.
Yeah.
So.
And young adult is kind of a weird category anyway,
It
right?
is.
Because it's.
But you need to separate it out because many readers in that age are not interested in going into the children's area. I think many adults start reading YA, they don't care, right? People, if you want to read Harry Potter, you stumble in there and you pick books up out of the J section, it's fine. But for teen readers, I think sometimes that can be an inhibition. So that's the reason it's separated out, because just to create a little of their own space.
It's just a category that I've always wondered how things fall into.
It's hard, it's
Sometimes
fuzzy, and
Well,
different
I
libraries
don't
define
seem
it
like they
differently.
are, so.
Well, a lot of libraries define it differently. So if you check out a book, if you request a book, it might be in our adult section, but it might be in YA, because some people define YA through high school. And we know that by the end of high school, students are frequently just reading general fiction. So we'll continue reporting this library traffic by year. So this is the door count. We know our circulation is really come back. It's very close to pre-pandemic numbers, but we know the door count is not yet back all the way. So we'll keep reporting this for the Octobers from 2017 until 2022. So you can see we're still down on door count.
Yeah.
This was the most concerning thing for me. I'm still unclear why it is we have still so little traffic in the library.
Yep. I mean, so the
We're
concerning
still
thing,
doing programming.
we're doing programming. The attendance at the programming is less. The circulation is effectively the same. So the sort of those library functions that are happening. I think one big chunk that I've noticed, and I've talked to a lot of people, is that tutoring is not happening largely. There's some, it started to come back a little bit, but it used to be in 2017 and 2018, if you came in the afternoon, there was not a horizontal surface to be found, because there were informal tutorings, formal tutorings, all over the library. Our study rooms were tightly packed, and every table and study area. And we even opened up these rooms frequently for tutoring. That is largely not a factor anymore.
So it is possible then this number could reflect a full amount of people using library services, just not extra tables.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's one of those things where that's why I keep pointing out the circulation looks like pre-pandemic numbers. So the variations, it's right in there. So this represents a difference in foot traffic into the library. What is that? I think, public meetings attendance is still down from what it was. Program attendance is still down from what it was.
Did anyone in the pandemic, push people to request books, but if they come in and get it.
They come and get it, right? I mean, but
Counts, right?
do people think about being in the library different? And that's where
Yeah.
is this something that continues to bounce back
Yeah.
and eventually looks like what it used to look like? Or is this a permanent change in how people are interacting with public spaces? I don't know.
It'd be interesting to ask Dave Hurst from the district whether kids are getting tutored through Zoom.
Oh, I know they are.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, yeah, sorry.
So you
that's-
don't have to come to the library with your kid now, your kid goes home and.
They were forced to during the beginning of the pandemic,
But
and I
they
think a
stuck
lot of
to it.
tutors are like,
Yeah, sure.
Why-
We're
why
actually
do I
being
drag
It'd be just
anymore?
interesting to ask him.
Right.
Say like, is that how, yeah,
I mean, it's not exactly the same, but I shifted my office hours that way, and I know many other people have too, like office hours were always in person, and like, why would you bother to sit in your office when no one's gonna come, like, you can just have it anytime on Zoom, middle of the night, whatever,
Right.
like, and so that shift happened there, so I'm sure in like high school it happened too.
and I don't know that represents that full
much.
number.
Yeah.
But it's a significant chunk,
Yeah.
because, when you're talking about people who are going in and out of the doors and not necessarily interacting with the collection, be it electronic or physical, that's a population. And one of the other populations are folks that attend meetings here. Lots of people come in, attend a meeting either in this room or in the community room, and then leave. They don't necessarily interact with the library as library. And we know that attendance at those public meetings is not yet back. And we don't control that. We've taken,
Which is place, yeah.
right, but I know there are increasingly hybrid meetings. We've had to install a similar system to this in the community room to allow people to have hybrid meetings. So they might have 6 people in the room and however many other people at their meeting attending remotely. So some of that is, we don't legislate that. I still,
What's your gut feeling about people coming in and like, not hanging out, but, looking at papers, puzzles, that kind of stuff, is that really the
it's
same?
less. No, it's absolutely not the same.
Less,
Yeah,
okay.
no. And there's fewer magazines to buy. A lot of magazines went out of business, so they're just not available.
Yeah.
Newspapers, less of a thing. We still
Right.
have some, but there's certainly that crowd that used to be there every morning,
Right.
reading through the newspapers, they've never returned to us.
Okay.
Well, I mean, obviously I don't really know, but like, it seems like the people that have the leisure time to be those people are gonna be like the older
Yeah.
set, and maybe many of them died. I mean, people died of COVID, right? Like,
Yeah.
I
Or
mean,
they're just.
some-
Or uncomfortable in a
Right,
public
right,
Comfortable
just-
about getting,
right,
like,
one of
I'm
the
not gonna
two,
risk it
like, I'm
anymore.
not risking it, yeah.
But you
How
got
do
on
we-
your routine. The
Right.
routine may have been something
Right.
different.
How do we track the numbers? Is there like a clicker at the door?
So every room, so both at the front door, the main entrance of the library, and the rooms, you see a little camera. It's a
Yeah.
down pointing camera. So we
Okay.
track the number of people, physically track them. The number we use is the number, the door count is the number at the main entrance to the library, because we have, Delaware Avenue and
Right.
Plaza entrance, so we count the main entrance.
So I just
We
have
don't take
one,
pictures anymore.
No, sorry.
I just had one more question though, then on this, and I know we are looking for a children's librarian,
Yeah.
but is children's in-person programming back to normal?
No,
No, and that's still limited because of the children's librarian or still COVID protocols?
neither. So we offer some fewer number of programs. Yes. The limitations, because we're offering a second session. So we know, and I put that in my report, frequently we'll offer the first session at 10 and there'll be 35 or 40 children in that. 35 or 40 attendees at that program. Second one, 4. Relatively to the point where the librarian's like, why do we have a second session of this? we're not turning anybody away at the door, and
Yeah.
there's hardly anybody. Oftentimes it'll be, they stay around for the second one, and which is fine. You want to, have your kids, but small children tend to, there's an attention, there's a maximum attention time.
But that could easily be rectified with scheduling, just, right, like just get rid of that extra thing.
Right, but I don't want to offer fewer children's programs right now. I'm not interested in offering.
We
So-
had kind of talked about this last meeting, I think maybe you weren't here, is that right? I think, but I feel like we talked about it, and maybe it was the meeting that you missed, I don't know, but Caroline had said like, you get in the habit of doing certain things, and so if you had little kids and
Right.
COVID, you got in the habit of not even thinking about coming here because you couldn't.
Yeah, I was.
And so, yeah, so maybe there's just like a generational, I mean, I hate to say it like that, but like a set of parents who just have little
Lost.
kids that we lost because they didn't get in the habit of coming here, and now it's like too late, they're gonna start
So this is
preschool.
why Chris, I give her full credit for this. The emphasis on these large outreach events where we are engaging with large numbers of small human beings and their parents out in the community in the hopes that they remember that the library is here and is a source of programs and activities, books, and a lot of other services.
So we still have story time?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
lots, many,
But people just aren't coming.
not in the numbers that they used to.
Yep. I'll also say, I think one other thing that might be driving that at this moment, and will probably drive some of that through the winter, is RSV. It's not necessarily COVID right now. It's for the littlest kids, for the toddlers. Our RSV is, just rampant. And I know most people are more concerned about that than COVID, and there's nothing we can do about that. But that, I stand by with what I said last time that Sarah just brought up, but also that, there's just some crowd concerns about some of those things that aren't necessarily COVID, but that's a real issue for parents right now.
Right. Although those things did exist before, and we still had full attendance, yeah.
But I think COVID made people a lot more aware of that stuff.
Yeah.
How many people have you heard say, oh, when we were all in the pandemic, nobody was getting colds, you were wearing masks, so you weren't getting colds. And now people are getting them again because they're not wearing masks, so, unintended
Isolation,
impact.
yeah.
Right, and I think this is where we just continue to put our emphasis on early literacy programs. We love when we can have them outside. Unfortunately, we're not in California, so I lose 6 months of the year. We went as late as we could outside because maximum attendees outside. They love that, to have a big crowd out there. So we're pushing on it. This is my identified crisis. And so we'll just continue to pound that message, try to get some of those folks back that might not think about us, and we'll continue to be here when they feel comfortable to come back to us. We'll make sure we're here.
Right.
So that's.
Yeah. That's great.
But I think that's why this, outreach that's why outreach is important. We have to not just be here and wait for people to come to us. We have to go out and engage with people where they are. With the schools, with the kids in the schools and preschools and out in the community where we can find those places. It's an expensive service. It's a staff intense service because I have to have somebody out and somebody here to cover that, particularly on a weekend. We've been doing a lot of, Chris is, she'll tell you, she's been covering a lot of those weekend outreach stuff herself just because it's important that it gets done. And so I'm trying to get our staff to the point where we can have, sufficient staff to do.
Didn't we do, I remember a discussion about like, when someone moves into the area, the welcome wagon thing, we are still doing that, or still doing?
We do welcome packets when we
Welcome
get, yeah.
packets? Okay, we got the liquor development.
Well, and for market, we took we couldn't get the back page, but we got the inside back page on the Chamber of Commerce
Right.
guide to just, that's money, but we're saying, can we put ourselves and inject ourselves in places where people may not necessarily expect us to be, have our packets in their office and try to get some folks, get new users in the market. That's right. That's what we're trying to do. All while circulation
Pretty much.
is the same. So here's our active users. Active users for October. For these past years, we didn't have this number for 2017 because our system is what it is. But here we are. So we're not all. it's fractionally lower. So here's the pandemic, here's the last year. So we are right on where we would expect. So these are the users, when I talk about active users, they did the checkout. They checked out something in the system, they checked out something online, they're engaging with the collection of the library. There it is. That's why circulation is normal. It's the same as it ever was. There was just a certain amount, but so when I keep reporting on the door count v circulation, that's what we're
It might be the normal. I mean,
Yeah.
works as well.
we'll keep watching. It's still going up, so we're in the right way. Lots of good continuing education. You read our NYLA conference programs. It was nice to see NYLA back in person. I hate to say HVAC, but I'm going to say it just a little bit. Don't glaze over. We were able to have the engineers from Sage Engineering happen to be here on the same day as our train, who are our contractors for our HVAC system. And so they were able to do some nice talking, and hopefully as the feasibility study moves forward, there might be some identified things that could be included in any project that might help make our HVAC a little bit better. We'll be meeting this week with some folks from the architects. They want to meet with some staff people. The first of those meetings will be tomorrow. And then I'm getting a modest number of responses from our e-newsletter about people and their thoughts on any building project that we might do. So just another check-in. We wanted to advertise them. We did that in the footnotes, in the upcoming footnotes. And in our e-newsletter, we're saying people, email the director. And if you want to know about the building project and where that's going to be, it's going to be at the board meeting. Come and talk at the board meeting, come engage with us, watch us online to find out what's going on with that.
Put it on Facebook too.
Put it on Facebook.
I did.
There you go. Yeah, great.
Are people offering suggestions or they just?
They're really positive, and I'll gather that all together with you when that kind of slows down.
Nice to have a running.
You have the whole thing, yeah. So it's a lot of positivity of the library, and that's great. But what I want is, what do you want?
Yeah, give me
And we get some of that. So
Yeah, it'd be good to have like a running list, so we just are mindful of it.
you got it.
The meetings tomorrow, are they open to the trustees?
They are, absolutely. You should all have a
I
link.
think you put that out.
The Teams link. Yeah, it'll be on Teams, which is a little bit, it's not Zoom.
Okay.
That's the Ashley McGraw uses Teams. So
Just click the link.
click the link.
Okay.
That's the claim.
Is it disruptive if we have to go in and out, like?
Nope.
Okay.
No, that's the best part about a virtual meeting. Run through this really quickly. I want to run down here to some statistics. Program numbers are looking good when compared with last year, but again, last year was a particularly bad year, not the worst of bad years, but we continue to see some good gains on the numbers of programs, the attendance at programs. Circulation is up 6.5%. That's not the same massive gain. This time last year, we had massive gains in circulation. Now we're seeing a more incremental gain. We're still catching back up. So 6.5% is healthy, but we're not all the way back up to what I would consider normal yet. However, homepage visits and some other measures are up, which I like to see. Our door count, again, here's this 12,000 this time last year, 14,700. So that's a 16% gain in door count. So some tutoring is returning. I don't want to say there's no tutoring happening in the library. There's a little bit of that. Some of those things are returning. Tech room use obviously up big as a percentage wise, but it's nice to see people back in that room, engaging with the 3D printer and the other services that are available in that room. Ebook use continues to be slightly slumpy, except for e-audiobook. People love their downloadable audiobooks. And again, that's just, there's fewer CD players out in cars out there in the world. So CD audiobooks are never coming back. It is an inevitable slide into oblivion for CD audiobooks, but we'll write it down for a little while longer. And then our wireless use, continued up. So that's just, again, another representation. If you didn't come in and check out, but you came into the library, you are likely engaging with our wireless internet access. So that's just some nice gains on that, even above the increase in door count. That's that. Any other questions?
No, I think I don't have any questions. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on now to UHLS.
We had a fairly short meeting, mostly approving the 2023 budget for Upper Hudson. Now that the libraries are returning their lawn fees, and we can take it off the agenda for next month because we don't have a meeting in December. So You can take up the space with something else. That's it.
Are there plans, Lisa, for in-person annual, you know how they have the big event?
You
usually at the end
know,
of the year?
They haven't at this point talked about that, but I'm sure there will be. We'll see.
That's like the spring, right?
I think it
Yeah,
was.
June.
Yeah.
It's the June meeting.
Yeah, I know we tried to return to in-person directors association meetings. I was there. But lots of people, they're gonna end up with a hybrid. There's no way, it doesn't go back, the genie doesn't go back in the bottle on this. And I think right now we're running them completely virtual because there were, 5 of us sitting in the room staring at each other and everybody else was out in the ether. So there's no reason to drag everybody down to Upper Hudson. I think there's something that's missed. I think I like an in-person meeting, but some people have to drive. They live in Hoosick Falls, and that's a long way.
Yeah.
So, but I just don't think we'll be returning to those physical meetings.
Yeah, I mean, we had been pretty much full virtual for a long, long time, and then when we returned to in person, suddenly not as many people were there,
Yes.
so. But, plus and minus, right?
Okay, great. Building project committee.
Okay, so everybody's on the committee.
Yeah.
So my only thing I want to report is that we have these first meetings with Ashley McGraw. I did meet with John Edwards from Sage Engineering. I told you got to meet with the folks from Train. We walked around the building. So it's interesting to have an engineer's perspective on the way the building is. They look at things differently. And then we'll know how those meetings go with the architects at the end of the week. So I'm looking forward to that.
Was there some sort of deadline when we very first started talking to them? Didn't they say they expected something to be done by December?
December 2nd,
That's their
December 2nd, they're gonna
That's their
deliver a
goal.
document.
They say they're going to deliver the document by December 2nd, and that has not changed at any
Oh,
point
wow.
during this process.
Makes me nervous, but they keep repeating it. So
They do.
okay. Yeah, look forward to it. December 2nd. Okay, yep. All right, so going to, any questions on that? Going to new business, contract negotiations, engagement letter, and attorney authorization.
Okay, in your board packet, you have almost the authoritative engagement letter. There were 2 changes that were recommended by the negotiation team on this, and they were both accepted, and I have a new engagement letter right here. Basically, the significant changes were that they will alert us in writing if their fee changes at some point in the future, if their hourly fee increases, and that if we're late, there's not a 2% interest penalty. It's just they accepted that instantly. So in order to engage with Bond Chunk and King as one of our attorneys, 2 things need to happen. 1, I need your authorization to sign this engagement letter with them for the library. And 2, I need your vote to add them to our authorized list of attorneys firms. So that, every year we do that authorization.
Right.
This would add Bond Chunk and King to that list.
So it's 2 separate motions.
You could do it as one, but yes, there's 2 things going on. Yeah.
And I make a motion to sign this engagement letter as edited. And to add Bong Chunk and King to our list of authorized attorneys.
I'll second both of those things.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. You're authorized.
Speaking of negotiations, Jeff, will the committee stay the same? Or the board?
Yeah, I think we already voted on it. I think
Okay.
it's Lisa and Caroline.
Oh, that's right,
and
at the beginning of the year, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
all the rest of us. For your sins, you're still on the negotiating committee.
Okay, collection, development, maintenance policy.
Right. So this policy has come through the policy committee for review and is in response to some continuing education that our staff went to about how to prospectively prepare yourself, prepare the library for any challenges that might come forward. We had a pretty robust policy. I have to say, I was pretty pleased with our policy. So there are 2 copies of the policy in your packet. One is the red line updated policy, and the other is the clear text. So I don't know which one you'd rather look at. It's a significant amount of redlining, mostly getting rid of a significant amount of really what is just chaff. and then bringing it down and bringing the policy into a, a tight policy that says exactly what it needs to say, as far as how the library will respond to any.
I'd recommend the clean copy, unless people want to see it.
Yes.
I absolutely chit chat, like, on, a lot of detail that didn't necessarily have to be in the policy itself. I will say on both, in the clean copy, and then there's something, this like a form that people fill out, that highlighted text has to be stretched.
The yellow.
Yeah.
The yellow, yes, thank you, sorry.
Take it
Thank
out.
you. Yep. All right, so here's our clean copy.
The only thing I was wondering about this is why there's the one, why removal is numbered as one when there is no
Right.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, okay, sure. So just strike the number.
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed odd, like,
Fair enough.
It must have been two that we took out.
I'm sure there were lots of
yeah,
ones
there's a
and
lot
twos.
that took,
Yes.
yeah, a lot
Okay.
came out.
Fair enough. And the text that Charmaine's talking about on the
That
form
part.
is this right here. This one is.
Can I make a motion as amended?
Yep.
Make the two changes. I'll make the motion to accept the new policy on collections.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Okay, motion carries.
Aye.
The retirement system invoice.
Yep. There you go. So we just talked about the retirement system. It's so timely. In any case, this is well outside of my authorization limit.
Okay, can you just plus that one, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Scrolly wheel. Scrolly wheel. All right, so basically, let's see. So here's our bill. Comes to us from the state. We really don't have a lot of choice in the matter. But if we pay it early, if we pay it before December 15th, which is why I'm asking for an off-cycle approval of this rather than just having it part of the regular warrant. If we pay it early, we save a couple $1,000s, which is
Sure.
worth doing. Even though apparently our participation is an asset to the library in the long run under the full accrual method.
Only for this year. though.
Only for this year, who knows
Next
what will
year.
happen next year.
I do want to just mention that this invoice comes in $5,000 less than what we budgeted, so.
Right?
And that's largely due to, again, when, up at the top here.
I see your salary at different tiers.
Right, so these are the salaries at different tiers. So here's tier 2. We don't have any tier 1s anymore in the library. All of our tier 1s are retired. One tier 2, I'm guessing that's one person. A couple tier 3s. Tier 4 is still the bulk, but you can see that tier 6 and tier 6A or whatever they're calling it,
Yeah.
are starting to come on together. That's almost $600,000. So it's probably half of what tier 4 is.
Yeah.
Tier 4 was a long time. Tier 4 lasted forever. And so it doesn't surprise me that it's still the bulk of our staff. But as we roll into the near future, we'll start seeing the tier 4s retire as well, which will change this census. And these are our contribution rates as far as salary is concerned for each of these tiers. So you can see back in tier 2, the library contributed 50.9% of salary, and then it just drops as you go forward. Roll back down here, and I will be asking for approval to pay this check. Off-cycle.
Well, I mean, in the assumptions that the returns were probably higher. I'm thinking the next bill is not gonna be as.
So next bill is not going to be this
That's
nice.
basically what-
Yes, yeah, that's
Because
true.
they're not doing it as well.
Right, and and I can only speak about this in the most general terms, but there's a 5-year smoothing of any increases or decreases of our bill. So if there was a terrible year in the stock market, it gets smoothed out over 5 years. So that bad year sticks with you, just like, but you know, on the opposite, a good year, a great year sticks with you for multiple years and it brings that cost down. That bad year will bring our cost up.
That's for motion number.
I'll make a motion to accept the retirement system invoice.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying yes or saying
Aye.
aye. Carries. Yeah, Hildene Museum pass invoice.
And then so from the biggest off-cycle check to the smallest off-cycle check, this came in after our cutoff for monthly bills. This organization is not large. They don't have a lot of staff people. And we would like to get this paid so that we can continue our membership at the Hildene. It's a popular pass.
Yeah.
But sort of organizationally, I think there's just not a lot of folks there. So we would not wait till December, because last year we waited for various reasons. We had to wait, and then the pass expired, and we had to wait until February to get all the way back. We would like to give this maximum chance to keep our pass active this year. It's not that the amount I can't authorize, it's that we're going to be paying it with a check and not waiting till December to pay this check. We're going to pay it as soon as we're done. Tomorrow, you're authorizing Tommy to pay it, so I would need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to pay the Hildene number library. Renewal.
Second. Love Hildene.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Okay. Motion
Where
carries.
is
It's, yeah, it's over in Vermont. It's the Lincoln. It's the Lincoln.
Go in the
How
garden.
far away is it?
So while the pass is
Oh,
so far,
Can't even go to North Shire.
It's a nice place.
Which is 30 minutes.
okay, any other new business for us today? Okay, old business.
Okay, so I mentioned last month briefly that we had lost our snow plow contractor, who turns out to have been giving the library a screaming deal for the past decade.
I almost fell out of my chair. when I
So
looked.
thank you to that guy of the library, apparently.
His contribution to the library.
So we went out and we saw 8 different quotes. We cast a wide net to try to find as many quotes as we could. For these, took some doing to get some folks to have them come back. Luckily, the one that came in on time and at the lowest cost was from the landscaping. And so in accordance with our purchasing policy, I alerted the treasurer and the president and the finance committee that I was going to be signing this. So I executed this contract in between meetings, which I normally wouldn't do, but I didn't know when the snow might start to fly, so I was feeling a little. Yeah, exactly. So not waiting till tonight was probably a good idea.
Yeah.
We'll take that one in the win column for Jeff. And we roll down here to the bottom. This contract was the electronic version that I had available to me, but we will not, of course, be paying this $1,000 of sales tax. That's not a thing. The contract for this year for salting and plowing is $12,500. So.
Right.
Yep, and they were, the other contractor was within $300 of this, and then there was one contractor that was a smaller contractor, significantly higher, more like 18. So when I see two large landscaping companies come in so close, I figure that's probably that's why
Versus what was the previous?
6,700. So it's significant, but I think it probably represents closer to reality. I think the struggle in this particular case, for myself, just for information, was getting someone to return our calls and actually come and give us a quote. I think it's a little bit of a pain to do a job like this. It's just exactly the wrong size. But we were able to.
So it includes parking lots and sidewalks in the,
Not sidewalks.
so that's our building and ground, people
Our-
do the sidewalks and the, what do they call the plaza, whatever.
Correct. So this is the actual plowing, the snow plow of the parking lot. Moving, not removing the snow, but moving that snow off and then salting, and then we're, the contract, they have to come back. If it snows so much, they have to come back and salt again. So
And I assume the budget surplus covers the increase in this contract.
easily, yeah, the $6,000. I mean, it's right there.
That's double, right?
Yeah, right. It's just,
And it's not by storm, it's just flat out.
It's a flat, yeah, we can't, I don't think we could
That's-
risk that. I think from the questions we got, Kevin was very pleased with this company. I mean, he said a couple of them would have been great. The 3 who responded, he would have been pleased with any of them, but he was quite pleased with the questions they were asking. They clearly knew what they were doing, how it works. So we're ready to go. So, I don't need a vote on this, but I did want to report that back to
I appreciate that. Okay, great. Personnel committee.
We just, first of all, why? We already talked about the positions. The evaluation is proceeding. I think that personnel committee will get together and just determine how to get trustee input once the feedback, and then Jeff will be sharing his goals at some point. So the personnel committee basically just needs to get together quickly and say, okay, this is the process we're gonna recommend, and we're in it.
Okay, let me know. I'm ready to go.
Jeff says his goals for next year are done, so ready to share. We just have to figure out how they interface with the evaluations and staff and the trustees.
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone for filling out the evaluation. You know, so thanks. Okay, any other old business? Any other business at all? You want to bring up any issues or items?
I was gonna ask, do you want to do anything at our last, meeting of the year? Like, maybe something at the end, or do you want cookies, I don't know, something, it's like, before the end of it, or no? Or I was saying, do you want to?
Yeah, we can do something, sure. I mean, we talked about the dessert thing for the staff, right, for their.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I said I'll do.
December 2nd, it's early this year, so it's the first Friday.
Right, and sometimes people, trustees go to that development day, it's a nice day to get to know people actually.
You're all welcome.
Yeah, we just mentioned.
If you're coming, it's good to let me know so I can plan on lunch.
Yeah.
No, no, I meant for us as the trustees, I guess, for the next meeting.
Yeah, we can throw on some ideas, sure.
That is a good point, though, on other old business. Is everything in line for staff development day? Or were you working with Caroline, Sarah, for treats for that?
Oh, I said I would do it, but I didn't know we needed to talk about it like in this, I thought like after the meeting,
Yeah,
I
it's not-
touched
yeah,
base
it's not
with like how
Yeah.
many people and
Okay,
what
that's
the
fine.
expectations are, whatever.
Yeah, well,
So go ahead.
I'm just gonna- sorry, so hard to do this remotely. I was just gonna say, we'll connect about what you think the needs are, Jeff, for those with dietary requests.
You bet.
And remind us of the speaker, are you having a speaker? Remind
We
us.
are. So we're gonna have Amanda Perrine is her name. She's from out in the Syracuse area. Our guest speaker, our big speaker, is gonna be focused on, why we're doing this. Why library? Why are we here? What are we doing? And why we love libraries. And here's all the good stuff that we're supposed to be doing. Is that fair?
Is she in person or remote?
No, she's in person.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna do the meeting. Typically, we would have held that in the community room. We're doing an in-person staff development day. I'm going to do it out in the main part of the library near, one time we had Chris Pagani come, and we had him stand sort of in the front of the library near the information desk. And that just gives people a little bit more elbow room and a little bigger air volume space. For having us gathered together. So because we've got the library closed, we can take advantage of that space. And then we will have lunch set up in the community room. And, in the morning, I'll have all of the hits, all the state of the library. We have HAZCOM safety training. We have our report back on our annual state required safety program. We'll have a report on that. I'm going to run through the long range plan. I think it's important that, we make sure that all of the staff are aware of the key elements of the long range plan now that we're starting to hit our stride with some of those things and make sure we're hitting our goals as a library, just make sure everybody is on the same page as far as that's concerned. If there's time, I will run an active shooter training drill, which we have not been able to do because I haven't had, we used to do those maybe twice or 3 times a year. And then it's always a good idea. We had a request for elevator safety training. People don't know how to pop the elevator open in an emergency. So we can do that, show people how the emergency exits work. Well, you walk by the emergency exit 18 times a day. And a lot of people don't know what happens if you actually hit that door. And some people, hit it, go, hit it, and it's just it's a good opportunity for us to test out some of those things, to actually pretend like the elevator is broken. How would you open the doors? I mean, I know, but I need to make sure that everybody knows.
We can just send out a reminder to the trustees at some point.
You bet.
Right, like right after Thanksgiving. just-
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise buried. Yes, I got it.
Yeah,
I got it.
okay. Cool. Appreciate that. Okay, any other business you want to talk about? Any public participation?
Nope.
Okay, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I'm so moved.
Second? I'll second it. All in favor?